Like to read a quote from what you wrote to you and get your thoughts here. Here's what you wrote, quote, citizenship is not an entitlement. It requires work, yet too many citizens of republics, ancient and modern, come to believe that they deserve rights without assuming responsibilities, and they don't worry how or why or from whom they inherited their privileges.
Well, there's an intrinsic paradox, Bill, in citizenship. And citizenship, in some sense, is the manifestation on the personal level of a constitutional system, whether that's a democracy or a
Right.
constitutional or consensual republic. And I think what happens is they tend to favor open markets, free markets, private property, individual freedom, and they create a lot of leisure and material affluence, and that requires the success of them. This requires a lot of discipline, community discipline, family discipline, traditional discipline,
Right.
religious discipline. So you don't satisfy the appetites that you're able to satisfy if you choose. So if you look at Petronius' Satyricon, the world that he's writing about in 60 AD, it's a world away from what Livy is trying to describe
Mhm.
during the Punic Wars. Or when you look at E.B. Sledge with the old breed at Okinawa, and then you look at things that are coming out of popular culture today, they're very different. And
Right.
so we don't inculcate our kids with civic education. We find that too simple or too unnuanced or something. But these societies evolve and they get more sophisticated, more complex, but they lose their core values because of the temptations of so much money, affluence, opportunities. You don't have three channels, you have 500, you know.
All right. Now, I'd like to offer a second pull quote from your book, Victor. You wrote, quote, citizenship in the United States is now being pulled in two different and often antithetical directions, from below and above spontaneously and yet by design through both ignorance and of intimacy with the Constitution.
Yeah, I divide the book in two halves. One is I call the pre-modern forces and one of the postmodern. Pre-modern are
Yes.
things that just organically happen. And that
Right.
is, I don't think anybody said, I want to destroy the middle class, but there were forces of globalization and policy and trade that did do that
Mhm.
almost.
Right.
And the open border is sort of a migratory phenomenon of poor people coming into richer places when they don't enforce their border controls. And same thing with tribalism. That's a natural affinity. It's one of the oldest and most dangerous affinities that humans have to self congregate or to self select by the basis of superficial appearances. And that's the pre-modern natural things that war against a citizen. The citizen is a middle class person. Most citizens have borders. They want to have a unique space in which they cultivate their customs and traditions and values. And then they give up their racial or ethnic identity as their primary identity. And they accept a civic shared identity that's not based on race or religion. And then finally, there's the second half is postmodern. These are people who actually know what they're doing and they're deliberate. And that's the growth of the administrative state. Uh, a system that gives us the FBI or the CIA or the IRS or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, so a General Milley or Lois Lerner or James Comey or James Clapper or John Britt, they can do things that are not checked by, and they're not elected. They're judge, jury, executioner, or legislative, judicial, um, executive powers all in one. Then we have the evolutionaries. These are very sophisticated academics, activists, and they feel, human nature is malleable fluid.
Right.
It's changed. We're no longer 1776 or 1787. Let's get rid of the electoral college. Let's have a national voter law contrary to the Constitution. Let's get rid of the 180-year filibuster, jump the 60-year 50-state union, maybe get rid of the 150-year nine court. And they want to evolve us into a direction that they feel better reflects the new person, the new man, so to speak.
Right.
And then finally, we have globalization where people, that's an old idea, cosmopolitanism, that
Yes.
Socrates talked about it. But
Right.
the idea that our first allegiances are with people in the world rather than the people right next to us.
Right. So in your book, Victor, and you very cleverly went about this. You break down citizenship into six headings. The first one is what you call peasants, which you describe as to be self-governing. Citizens must be economically autonomous.
Yeah.